Hello and welcome to the YYC Soccer Podcast. My name is Jason Komet and my co-host is Scott Strasser. Hi, Scott.
Hi, Jason. How's it going this week for you?
It's going okay. I'm still in the usual basement pod cave, but it sounds like to me maybe there's a little bit different sound quality coming on your end there, Scott.
Yeah, this is I'm trying something new, but I'm on my deck. I've discovered that the Wi-Fi is still pretty good out here, and since it is so nice in the evenings, once the temperatures have dipped a little bit, I thought, you know what, I'm going to try and do the episode outside for the first time. But yeah, there is some background noise, which I apologize for, but hopefully it doesn't interfere with the sound quality too much.
Yeah, well, right now it sounds pretty good. So anyway, let's get on to it. So if you are a new listener to our podcast, what is the YYC Soccer Podcast all about?
So this is actually our 60th episode. I don't know if you noticed that, Jason, but great milestone. And yeah, in case someone is new, we talk about soccer in Calgary, and we talk about it at the amateur, collegiate, and professional levels. We discuss the teams and the players from the city's soccer community, from the grassroots and amateur leagues up to the university and professional level.
And this week's topics, we're going to review Cavalry's match last weekend against York United, and also do a preview of the upcoming match versus Forge, which will be Sunday afternoon at Spruce Meadows. We're going to take a moment now that we're officially halfway through the season, and we're going to talk about the season so far, maybe even give out some grades. We also have an interview this week. Scott, who's our interview with?
Yeah, we actually interviewed him last week, so it feels like it was quite a while ago, but we had a good conversation with Christian Greco-Taylor, the player for Pacific FC. But he is from Calgary, and he talked about how he ended up at Pacific FC, and also some of his national team experience that he's been enjoying this last year.
We'll get to that interview in a bit, and lots of interesting information about his background in Calgary, and also the upcoming U20 tournament. So we're also going to talk about League One Alberta, because the season is almost over. And we'll also do a similar review of AMSL. AMSL season is there's a little bit more left in it, but we'll go over that as well. So, but let's get started. I guess the best place to get started is with Cavalry FC.
This is Tommy Wilden Jr., and you're listening to the YYC Soccer Podcast.
Yes, Cavalry played at home last weekend, Saturday afternoon. They welcomed York United. We talked last week about how we didn't expect this to be an easy game by any means for Cavalry, considering that York has been playing quite well in the last few months. And York managed to pull out a win, 2-1.
The first half was scoreless, but in the second half, York opened the scoring. Mobabuli scored on a direct free kick. I think it was probably about just over 20 yards, a few yards outside the box. It was a perfectly placed free kick.
Yeah, it was. Well, it did clip a player in the wall, so I don't know how accurate it would have been if it didn't have that slight deflection, but it soared into the top corner. I was actually trying to think of the last time Cavalry conceded from a direct free kick. I wasn't able to recall. It seems like it's pretty rare, but yeah, you can't really argue with the placement on that shot from Babuli. So yeah, Babuli got things going, and then about 20 minutes later, in the 82nd minute, York United doubled their lead thanks to a goal from a 16-year-old, Shola Jimo, knocking in a pass from Brian Wright after he had dribbled his way through half of Cavalry's defense. Really a case of the defense caught sleeping on this one.
Cavalry defense has been pretty solid all year, but that was not one of its finer moments. And they capitalized and got the 2-0 lead. And then right at the death, in the final minute of injury time, Cavalry was able to bring one back to make the score look a little bit better.
Yeah, Tobias Warshevsky. Who else? I mean, he's scored almost half of Cavalry's goals this year. He managed to knock it in after a long ball from Leighton Brooks. So I believe that is Leighton Brooks' first assist of the season.
Yeah, it was a nice ball in by Brooks and a nice finish by Warshevsky, but Yeah, it was too late.
And Jason, I wasn't at this game, but I know you did attend some of it, and you said that Tommy Wheeldon Jr. seemed pretty dejected in the post-game press conference, a little stunned by that one.
I don't know if I have the biggest sample size, because I haven't been attending these press conferences for too long, but I've been watching interviews and everything over the years. He was looked about as down as I'd ever seen him. He looked hot and tired and frustrated, and he wasn't angry at all. He just looked like down.
Yeah, I've seen him like that before, but I mean, this is a disappointing result for Cavalry. Keeps them, toward the bottom of the standings. They're still in 6th place with 3 wins, 8 draws, and 3 losses. But against a team that they've had a lot of success against in the past. So clearly it's easy to see why he was in that kind of headspace. But it was interesting. I know you said that there was some discontent from fans again after this game.
Yeah, I heard that secondhand from some of the photographers that were over by the foot soldiers at the end of the match. So that's what they were saying. So I have no reason to not believe that. So I'm very impressed with York. I didn't know what to make of this coach. He seems to have a pretty clear understanding of what kind of adjustments need to be made with the roster he has and how to play. And they look really good.
Yeah, new head coach for York. We may as well his name is Benjamin Mora, and yeah, I'd never heard of him before, but he seems to have really picked this team's performances up since Martin Nash was let go a while ago. But York is I think they're still in 2nd place obviously after this. They and Ottawa are at the top of the table.
Yeah, a couple other notes about this match. There were a couple injuries, which I wasn't aware of anyway. Sergio Camargo wasn't available for the match, and Eric Kobza was also not dressed, I'm presuming because of some kind of injury. And Bradley Camden still not available. And we did have a debut from the new German player. And I'm going to let you take it from here, Scott, because any chance you get to use your German pronunciations on the podcast, I'm all for it. So go for it.
Yeah, the new player is Nicholas Veiling, and this was his first match after he joined the club from a team in Germany's Regionalliga, which is like 4th division. His team beforehand was TSV Steinbach Heiger. So yeah, I got to flex my German one more time. But no, yeah, like you said, he didn't look out of place. He didn't look out of his depth at the CPL. So it's neat to see a new player join mid-season, and it'll be interesting to see what kind of impact he can have as an attacking player, as a winger.
The Cavs need some kind of boost on offense in their attacking strategy. So I would not be surprised to see him in the starting 11 this week. I don't have any concrete evidence of any of that, but it just seems like that could be entirely plausible. And yeah, it's always a big match when Forge comes to town. Forge, they're not at the top of the table right now, but I'd say overall they're still in pretty good form overall.
Yeah, Forge has gone through a little bit of a rebuild. They have a new goalkeeper, Chris Colongo, who's playing quite well, it seems, and it's Bobby Smirniotis. He's been the cream of the crop when it comes to coaching in the CPL. Obviously, Tommy Wheeldon Jr. is up there too, but Bobby has been a force to be reckoned with this whole duration. So difficult match always is. Cavalry's coming into it, kind of with low morale, maybe. Don't really know what to expect. There are a few talking points that I know you've put down here in our notes. So injuries you've already mentioned, Bradley Camden, Ali Musi, and then you also made a note here about Nico Moroniak and the amount of game time that he has racked up so far.
Yeah, well, this is one of those little details that I think I get a huge interest in following. And I don't know if it's anyone else does, but anyway, Nico Moroniak has played in 7 league games this year. And part of the U Sports contract, you can only play 8 games. So if he steps on the field this week, that'll be it. So they'll either have to decide to send him back to Mount Royal or sign him to a regular non-U Sports like standard player contract deal. So there's still 4 games before the August 15th deadline where U Sports players have to go back to their school. But yeah, it's one of those things that could tell something about the roster going forward. If they're, I think he's had a lot of playing time, and I wouldn't shock me if they sign him to a regular deal.
Yeah, especially in the last month, he seems to have been playing every game. Yeah, I think I fully expect him to play, and I do think that that he's gonna get a regular contract pretty soon.
Now that we've talked about the games happening and the upcoming game, let's do a bit of a mid-season breakdown. So we've got 14 games in, and we've got 14 to go. So Scott, why don't you start it off? Where are you at with things right now?
Yeah, so I've been thinking about this for the last day or two, and I think I'm gonna give Cavalry a C, which is a passing grade. And my first instinct was to go, it's been a bad season, let's give them a D, which is a fail. But honestly, I mean, like we've talked about up until that second goal against York, we were talking about how Cavalry's defense has actually been pretty solid all season long. Their goalkeeping has been pretty reliable. If you look at the CPL table, Cavalry still has among the best defensive records in the league. 13 goals against. That's the same as Atletico Ottawa. It's just one more than Pacific FC. So their defense has been strong. Their goalkeeping has been strong. Their midfield has been off and on. I feel it really depends on the day and who's playing with whom in the center of the park. It's really just attacking that they've really faltered this year. So yeah, I would give like the defending a B, but the attacking a D. So overall, I mean, I'm giving Cavalry a C for 2024 thus far.
Well, I've been contemplating it, maybe not quite as long as you have, but I've been thinking about it as well. And generally speaking, I agree with where you're at. I'm going to go with B minus, and the only reason it's B minus is because they're in the pack. They're still in the mix. I think this season would be definitely a C season sort of thing, but they're still in the mix. They beat Forge. They win the next game. They're right in the playoff mix. And you know what? All of this first half, no scoring and lots of draws, it'll all be forgotten very quickly if they can just pull together a couple of results. Now, I know we've been saying that for more than a month now, but it's still true. As far as, on a position by position basis, in keeper, I don't think, Marco Carducci's Marco Carducci. I think, he's his usual solid self. And, with the exception of a couple of gaffes, the defending's been strong. And I kind of agree with your thoughts on midfield. There's been some good moments. There's been some not as good moments, but I know even at the press conference, Tommy Wilden Jr. said on the weekend, he said, it really doesn't matter anymore. He said, we can lead in XG, we can lead in every stat and every metric out there. But if we're not scoring goals and we're not winning, nothing else matters. And I kind of feel like that's sort of the bottom line right now. And they're not scoring. Goals matter, and there's got to be more production. And I think it's a recurring theme amongst the players when they talk. Like Tom Fields spoke after the press conference. He said the same thing Dan Klomp said a couple weeks before that, and said other players besides Tobias Warshevsky have to score. And
yeah,
that has to happen.
Yeah, 100%. And we can talk about goals for. Cavalry has only scored 14 goals in 14 matches, so that's a goal a game. The only teams that have scored fewer than them are Pacific and Valor FC, who both scored 13. Offense is clearly not clicking yet, apart from, I'd say, Warshevsky and Fraser Aird, who's been assisting him on a lot of his goals thus far. We've talked about how those two players have really been carrying the offensive load this season. A few other things I think are really interesting about this year. Jason, you did a good job. You compiled the records and the points totals that Cavalry has amassed at the 14 game point of the season for each year of their history. And what's interesting is, with 17 points after 14 games, that's the same as they had last year when they ended up running away with the regular season title.
Yeah, the only difference is wins. They had 4 wins and 5 draws, and this year they've got 3 wins and 8 draws. And the losses are very similar. 4 losses last year, 3 losses this year. So they're in the mix at midseason. So I remember last year when we were just in our early episodes of the podcast, we were kind of wondering, like, where is it going this year? And it seemed like there was just signs that it just wasn't going to come together. And then all of a sudden it came together. Well, here we are. We're at that same point right now, and they have the same number of points. So it could still come together, I think. But
I want to mention something that I found really interesting. If you look at every game they played this season in the CPL, all but one of those games finished either as a tie, obviously, or one team won by a single goal, whether it was Cavalry or their opponent. So every game they've played has been, 2-1, 1-0, 1-1, 2-2, etc. The only game that finished with a goal differential of more than one goal was their 3-1 win against Vancouver FC early into the season. So when you talk about them being in the mix, they're not only in the mix from like a playoff hunt perspective, but they're also in the mix every match. They haven't been blown out yet, but adversely, they also haven't blown out a team or even scored more than 3 goals. Circling back to my original answer, I think it has been a passing season thus far. It's a C grade thus far. Obviously, Cavalry's not used to being a team that barely passes. If you use the school analogy, they're used to being on the honor roll. So I know they're going to want to improve their performances and their results in the weeks and months to come. But I just felt like this was a good opportunity to say that, as frustrating as some of these games have been for Cavalry fans, it's really not a disaster, at least not yet.
agreed.
I am Christian Greco-Taylor, and this is the YYC Soccer Podcast.
So as mentioned at the top of the episode, our interview guest this week was Christian Greco-Taylor, originally from Calgary, but he's now playing for Pacific FC. So a bit of a changed allegiance, but he has history in BC. He was, for joining Pacific, he was actually with Vancouver Whitecaps too. So he's used to being out on the West Coast.
We sort of had on our minds to get him on the podcast for a while, but I think that the whole idea that he's going to be representing the Canada U20 team here starting this weekend in the CONCACAF Championship, I thought it'd be really good timing to get him on at this point, so he could talk a little bit about that in addition to his career and time in Vancouver and Victoria so far.
Yeah, he's become a real fixture for the U20s. He's been with them on a couple of their recent trips. He talked to us about going down to Trinidad and Tobago as well as Chile. And at this point, as we record this, I mean, he and his teammates will be preparing for their opening match in the CONCACAF U20 Championships against Honduras.
And those matches are coming up this weekend. The first match they'll be playing will be against Honduras on Saturday, and all the games will be on One Soccer.
Yeah, after that one, they'll take on Dominican Republic on July 23rd, and then they'll wrap up the group stage against El Salvador on July 26th. If you're feeling a little bit of Copa America hangover, you can still get some Canadian national team content. Just check out the U20s.
We'll run that interview now.
We'd like to welcome Christian Greco-Taylor to the podcast. Christian is from Calgary, and he currently plays with Pacific FC. He was also recently called up to the Canadian men's U20 national team for the CONCACAF Championships this month. Christian, welcome to our podcast.
Thank you guys for having me.
So we know what you're up to now, but we'd like to start by getting a bit of your background and your playing career to date. Do you want to kind of outline which clubs in Calgary you played for as a youth and how it came to be that you moved over to British Columbia?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I started pretty early. I started off at Calgary Rangers. I was there for about, I'd say, 2 years when I was from 8 years old to 10 years old. And then I made the move over to Blizzards. And I was at Blizzards for probably the majority of my career. Had a lot of good coaches along the way, and then I was around 13 years old when I moved to Foothills, so I kind of bounced around a majority of the clubs in Calgary. And then from Foothills, I made the ASA teams from, I think it was 2017 to 2019, where we would have combines in British Columbia, and that's where I had gotten scouted from the Whitecaps and joined the Whitecaps in 2019 after being scouted for like probably I'd say 3 years almost, because we had the 3 combines. Yeah, I was obviously at Whitecaps for a majority of like the last 5 years of my life almost. So I'd been in Vancouver since I was 14, moved out of Calgary when I was 14, and obviously got released at the end of last year with WFC2 in MLS Next Pro. Then found my way to Pacific, which is where I am currently.
You mentioned one thing there about moving away from home at 14. How was that? That's a really young age. I've got a 13-year-old daughter. I can't even imagine her moving away from home. And that's only a year difference. So what was it like to be 14 and moving to a different province?
Yeah, it was probably the toughest part of my life, to be honest, moving away from my family. I mean, my mom and my dad are pretty like, they're the rocks of like my family and who I am and who I want to become. I always look up to them. Moving away from them the first year when I was 14 to 15, obviously before COVID happened, it was probably the worst. This is pretty negative, but the worst 6 months of my life was probably when I first moved away. I was not the most mature kid. But I think that's all soccer players when they're around the ages of 14. But it was very, very, very difficult. Obviously, not living with them, not having the same food at home was probably the biggest problem. But I worked through it. I matured as a person. The back end of my years in Vancouver were very good, but it was very, very difficult moving away.
So yeah, like you mentioned, overcoming those challenges. How did that help you grow as a player and as a person to go through that kind of thing?
I think, to be honest, it just helped me like see, like, I went through a lot of difficult times in my career and just like off the field. But in terms of my career, I think it just helped me like work harder, because in Calgary, I think I had almost everything in front of me. I didn't really know what hard work was, which is pretty weird to say, but I just really didn't. And it humbled me a lot when I moved to Vancouver, because it was the first time I played with guys my age and I wasn't really the best one on the team, which in Calgary, I think like I was for a majority of the time, and I just got humbled when I moved out here. So in terms of my career, it just put me in a position to work harder than I ever have. And obviously nothing would ever be given to me in that situation. You're in an MLS academy and you can't just like sit back and do nothing. You actually have to work for it. You have to work for playing time. You have to work for everything. Those were the big things for me, is hard work and just off the field, I guess, discipline. I'm a pretty like chill guy. I don't like to go out much, but obviously when you're around your group of friends 24/7, you always want to go out and do things. So it's just about it being disciplined and being mature as a human. And that's just what it boiled down to, is maturing myself and obviously working hard on the field.
You ended up signing with Pacific this year. So how did that signing happen, and why did you feel that Pacific would be a good fit for you?
Well, to be honest, I was with Cavalry for 2 months of their preseason going into CONCACAF. Obviously, I couldn't travel with them because I wasn't signed. The 2 months from January up until my first call up with the national team, I was with Cavalry, with Tommy. Obviously, I'm really close with the Wheeldon family. Like I've been coached by Tommy Sr., Jay Wheeldon, Tommy Wheeldon now. So that whole family has really helped me. And like, I couldn't say any more positive things about that family in terms of my career, but obviously just things didn't line up in Cavalry because of a couple different things, and I ended up going to a national team. And to be honest, Pacific wasn't really in the question up until like probably the last game against Trinidad and Tobago, where I had probably one of my best performances in my career. So I think I caught an eye there. Obviously, James Merriman used to be with Whitecaps, so I mean, that was the first conversation I had with them was a week after I'd gone back from Trinidad. And then from there, it was pretty much, I didn't think of anyone else. Obviously, there had been another team involved in the CPL, but I think James, I knew of him, and he coached a few of my good close friends. So I knew it would be the right fit. He knows what it's like to play young players. The CPL is about playing young players. Obviously, I haven't been on the field as much this year, but obviously we have the most U21 minutes, and I still have 2 more years left on my deal. So it's the perfect place for me to come here and develop and become the best player I can, to then push on to do something even better.
Christian, you referenced your playing time thus far. How has it been fighting for playing time in the Pacific squad? Pacific has always been a strong team, and who's playing left back there right now? Is it Bradley Bleat?
It's Eric Lajeunesse.
Okay, sorry. So,
Yeah.
yeah, how has it been challenging for playing time in that preferred spot of yours?
It's been tough. Like this has probably been again probably one of the most challenging parts of my career is just putting my head down and not thinking about it too much. Like I'm the one to overthink things when either I'm not on the team or I'm not in the squad or I'm not playing, that type of thing. I mean, like I said, the first year of my Whitecaps career when I was 14 has really like I went through that phase and it's helped me so much where like now I'm not playing as much as I really want to. But then again, I just got to put my head down and work hard. There's nothing else I can do except for work hard and prove to the people around me that I deserve to be in those starting places. And like I said, my time will come. It's just a matter of getting on the field. Like I got the one appearance against Ottawa and I thought I was very good. I have made a few appearances since then, but I haven't been starting. But obviously I just need to keep working hard and do my thing. And that's all I need to worry about. So, yeah.
You played last year in MLS Next Pro. There aren't very many players that have been in the position that have played in the Canadian Premier League and also in Next Pro. So how would you compare the leagues, like quality of play, just in general? Like what are the differences that you note between the two that you would want to talk about?
When I was first in MLS Next Pro, I didn't think the jump was going to be that difficult. But then when I went into the Cavalry preseason, I was like, oh, okay, this is what it's like. Like the jump is pretty big. And in terms of like just the little things, it's like quality on the ball, the ability to keep things, the ability to have good technique, no matter what surface you're playing on. You gotta be able to have a good technical base to be able to make passes. Got to be patient. It's a lot more tactically sound as well. Like just tactics in general. It's way more tactics based in the CPL, whereas MLS Next Pro, it's more, I'd say, just pace and power and that type of thing, where it's a bunch of younger guys trying to prove themselves to try and break into a first team. Whereas when you're in the CPL, you're in a first team environment 24/7. Your standards have to be high no matter what. And I'd say that's the biggest difference is you're in a first team, you're fighting for positions and like jobs are on the line. So it's a pretty big jump, I have to say.
We're going to shift focus again, Christian, and talk about Canada and your participation in the upcoming U20 CONCACAF, the championships in Mexico, right? So you'll be taking on Honduras, Dominican Republic, El Salvador later this month. What do you think about that upcoming tournament and those opponents?
It's our biggest challenge yet as a group. I think we obviously had it pretty easy in Trinidad when we faced Dominica, Trinidad, and St. Vincent. I think we had it pretty easy. We didn't really face much adversity. Obviously, we just came back from Chile about a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago, and we faced a lot of adversity in terms of playing against Chile, who are a top 20 team in the world, I think, and we can't hide behind the fact we got dominated for 90 minutes, but it'll be a very tough challenge for us here in Mexico. But I think the group's ready for it. Like, we have a lot of quality, and I think we have a very good chance at qualifying for a World Cup here. We just all need to stay humble, be humble in what we do. And I think the 3 games will set us off. And if we can win all 3 and do it very convincingly, I think that will put a mark on the rest of the teams that are there, especially the US and Mexico, where those are probably the favorites to win the whole thing. But I think we can be the humble underdogs that do a job and cruise through our group and hopefully dominate throughout.
You've had a chance to do a bit of traveling in 2024. You were in Trinidad and Tobago and Chile and now Mexico. So how's that been? And I know sometimes like you're missing time with your club, but how's the general experience been, traveling internationally, playing for Canada that way and having those new experiences?
I'll be honest, it's so fun. It's being with the guys, being in different countries, being in foreign countries, like it brings a lot of us closer together. And honestly, just the experiences of being in different places, like Trinidad was plus 30 every day. We were doing double sessions. We were doing pool sessions. We were ice tubs every day. Like the whole experience then was very crazy. I hadn't done anything like it. Obviously, it was my first national team camp. And then obviously just being in Chile, it was a lot different than what it was in Trinidad. I think it's just like being in a foreign country. Obviously, the countries are beautiful, like sightseeing, everything. Like the hotel was nice, everything. Like I couldn't be more appreciative of the position that I'm in because not many people can say that they've been to South America, Trinidad, like all these places, and I'm only 19 years old. So I can't say anything but thank you to like Canada Soccer and them because the opportunity has been amazing. And it's just fun to be with the guys, to be honest, in all these different places.
I want to ask you about how you feel you've grown as a player, especially since turning professional, and since joining the CPL and getting these minutes with the national team program?
I think I've developed pretty well. I mean, last year I had a few immature moments in my season with WFC2, and I think looking back on it, if I had the experience I have now, I think things would have ended up a lot differently. Maybe obviously I was with Cavalry, and I think that's where my mindset changed, was like I experienced a lot of being around a lot of professionals that have been all around the world. Obviously they have guys who have been in the A-League, guys who have been in Europe, and then I came to Pacific, and there's guys from Romania, there's guys from Scotland, and all that type of stuff. There's a lot of different backgrounds and different football cultures. And I think I've just taken bits and pieces from everyone I've been around, and I've tried to apply that to my game. And I think that's the only thing I can do, is try and learn from the people that are around me. And I think that's the best thing possible to make myself better. And obviously being in the national team, there's guys who are getting MLS minutes who are my age, and they're bringing their quality to the group around us. And it's good to be around, because you'll learn things that you might not learn in other places. So it's just taking bits and pieces, being open-minded to learning about different things, and then going from there, applying it to your own game and being yourself and applying those things in games and in training.
What are your future aspirations? Like right now, you're going to play for Canada in the U20 and you're with Pacific, but sort of where would you like to see yourself a few years down the line?
I think the big goal for me is possibly MLS. Obviously, I've been in the MLS Academy, or I was in the MLS Academies for the past 5 years. MLS is a goal. Europe is a goal, obviously. So, and even national team, like this World Cup, if it's not this World Cup, I hope Canada will qualify for 2030. Those are my sights. Obviously, I know Jesse Marsh was talking this morning, or I saw a video of him this morning saying he's going to be at the Pacific Forge game this weekend. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be there. He'll be there. So it's good to have eyes on you. And I think that's in the next 2 to 3 years, if I can build myself up and get as many minutes possible, put eyes on myself, and hopefully transfer to an MLS team. I think that's everyone's goal. Like even in Pacific, like we all talked about it. We just played Whitecaps last night, and those are the teams you want to be playing against. Those are the teams you want to be in going forward. And I'm only 19, and I think I have a good career ahead of me if everything goes well. So of course MLS, and then obviously MLS has a lot of eyes, so hopefully Europe one day too.
And those are some fantastic goals. That's it for our questions, but we always like to give our interview guests an opportunity to give some shout outs or to mention anything they'd like. I know you talked about your parents and the impact they've had on your upbringing and your identity, but anyone else you kind of want to give kudos to?
Yeah, no, my parents, and I'd say, like, for me, like I said earlier, the Wielden family, I know Tommy might have been on here earlier, or he's been on a podcast before, like Tommy Sr., Tommy Jr., Jay, all of them. Like, I don't think I've ever said it to them, but I can't be more appreciative of what they've done for me in my career. Jay coached me when I was like 15, 16, or 13, 14, I don't know what it was. Obviously, I had Tommy before that, and then I just had Tommy Sr. earlier this year. So that family, I think I've never actually said to them or how appreciative I have been of them, but those are probably the ones, especially in Calgary. They've done so much for soccer in Calgary. They've built something that is so special there, and obviously that's my hometown, so couldn't be more appreciative of them. And I'd say that's the big ones, and obviously my family, of course.
Hi, my name is Julie Sorokin, and this is the YYC Soccer Podcast.
Okay, we're going to spend a bit of time now talking about League One Alberta and breaking down sort of where we're at. There's only a handful of games left on both the men's side and the women's side. So we're going to go through some of the scenarios of who's in, who's eliminated, and where we're at with, really most teams have 1 or 2 games left this season.
Yeah, most teams, although quite interestingly, some teams have finished their season already. So on the women's side, that would be ASA High Performance. They have a 50-50 split. They've won 6, lost 6. So that's their season. Yeah, they're currently in second place with 18 points. But obviously, yeah, the other teams have a chance to leapfrog them in their last game or two. But right now, we see that Blizzard, who has 2 games left, only need 2 points to secure a spot in that championship game.
The other team, which is in control of their own destiny, is Scottish. They have 2 matches left, and if they win both, it really doesn't matter what anyone else does. They'll be in the playoffs. if they don't win both games, they still can definitely make the playoffs. It's just that some other results have to go their way.
Yeah, and BTB and Foothills, as well as I believe Calais United, all mathematically possible to finish in the top two, but a lot less realistic than those other scenarios.
Yeah, I think Calais, like everything would have to align for them to somehow get that second playoff spot. So yeah, Foothills and there's still a bit in the mix, and BTB potentially as well. So
I wanted to highlight the statistics. So as we've talked about a few times, Kendall Showers, Calais United, she's been having a fantastic season. She's leading the scoring charts right now with 9 goals. Interestingly, the player in second place, or at least tied for second place in the scoring charts, is Tegan Stewart, youngster from ASA High Performance, who has 7.
Yeah, and we've seen her play significant minutes with Foothills UWS this year, and she definitely hasn't looked out of place on that team. So yeah, she's having a really good summer here.
Now we can transition to the men's division. Actually, pretty similar looking table. Scottish and Blizzard, top of the table. Scottish, they have 2 games left. They only need 4 points. Blizzard, a little trickier for them. They have 2 games left, but they need to win both of those to mathematically secure their spot. Anything less than that and other things have to happen in their favor.
Foothills and St. Albert Impact still have a chance to be in it. Foothills has 1 game left and they're on 20 points. It could work out that they could make it depending on how they do, if they get a win or a tie, and other things happen. St. Albert, they've got to win their final match and then hope everything falls into place. So it's not likely, but I think it's pretty safe to presume we're going to see one Calgary team in the men's division, I think, and probably Scottish will be in it as well.
Yeah, they've been at the top of the table for almost the entire season. But Foothills, I mean, we talked about their mid-season resurgence and that winning streak that they went on. They're the defending champions, and it would be quite cool to see them make that game after the start that they had. So I also wanted to highlight the scoring leaders in the men's division. We talked previously how Shannon Chanda was the men's division's top scorer in League One with 7 goals. He's still on 7, which I guess makes sense when you consider the fact he's been called up to the Cavalry first team and probably hasn't even been playing for the League One Cavalry U21s in recent weeks. But Owen Antoniuk, Calgary Foothills, he's on 8 goals, which is joint leader with Usman Maheshi from St. Albert Impact. Great season for Owen Antoniuk and Usman Maheshi. I'm sure they'll both be hoping to add some goals to their totals.
Hey, this is Mason Trafford, and you're listening to the YYC Soccer Podcast.
So League One is really getting close to being done, but AMSL is not that far behind. And I thought while we're crunching all the numbers, why don't we take a brief look at the AMSL tables? So let's start off on the men's side. Scott, you want to kind of go over that?
Sure. Well, we'll focus on the Southern Division because that's where all the Calgary teams are. But interestingly, Lethbridge FC has been the best team in the South. After 11 matches, they have 7 wins, 2 losses, and 2 ties for 23 points with 2 games to go. They've already clinched first. So the teams battling for second are Calais United and the Blizzard Dinos. Calais United are in second with 16 points, but Blizzard Dinos only 2 points behind them with 14. So they're basically battling for that second playoff spot. And Calgary Villains FC, they're mathematically eliminated. And I see you've made a note here that they're going to face 1UP in a promotion.
Yeah, when I was looking at for the tables, I found that it popped up on a page. I don't know all the details of the challenge rule for AMSL, but what I kind of get out of it is that any team that wants to challenge to join the AMSL, they have to apply quite early. and the application is already in, and apparently it's been approved. And so One Up will play Villains. I believe it's a home and home. I'm not even sure when. I think it's in August sometimes, but yeah, that's the plan. And I actually look to see. Interestingly enough, One Up isn't in first place in the top CUSA league right now, but I guess they've still decided they're gonna see if they can make it into AMSL.
Yeah, that'll be an interesting matchup to see how One Up fares against an AMSL team. Although I believe Villains have been struggling this year, haven't they?
Yeah, I don't think they've won a game, and their goals differential's been quite poor. So when I find out more about when those challenge games are, I think I'll mention it in the podcast, and I think it might be kind of fun to go to those games, actually.
It would, wouldn't it? I imagine those players would know each other pretty well, even though they're not playing in the same league at the moment.
For sure. Let's talk about the women's side and the South Division. And right now, basically, Calgary Blizzard are, to call them dominant, I guess would be an understatement.
Yeah, they're 8-0, so perfect 24 points. What's that? 14 points more than Calgary Callies United, who are in second. They've only won 3 of their 8 matches, while drawing 1 and losing the other 4. So very much a one-horse race in the AMSL on the women's side, at least in the South. Foothills, they are bottom of the table at the moment, but equal number of points as Lethbridge FC. They're both on 9 points. So decent battle for second place.
Callies has a couple games in hand, but yeah, it's Blizzard's going to get first place. It's just second place might be a bit interesting to see who ends up there, because it could really be any one of those 3 teams at this point.
Hi guys, this is Kareem Bashir Bey. You're listening to the YYC Soccer Podcast. Have a great day.
Okay, to wrap up, we have a few notes that we wanted to go over. Things that didn't really fall into the other segments, and we just thought we would add them in. And we wanted to do a follow-up from last week. We spent a lot of time talking about the Thunder Bay Chill, and it's official now. The Thunder Bay Chill, they clinched their division, and they're on their way to the playoffs, which are actually this weekend. So Friday, which is today when you're probably listening to this, they're going to be playing Peoria. And then there's also going to be another match, Des Moines Menace against Bavarian United. And so the 2 winners of those matches will play each other on Sunday, and then they'll advance to the next step. So good luck to the Chill.
Good luck to the Chill. As we talked about, they have some Calgarians on that team this summer. Interesting you mentioned Des Moines Menace. That is just a team that has been in the USL2 or previously PDL for a very long time. One of the teams that the Calgary Storm played in their playoff run in 2001. So interesting to see they're still kicking. But yeah, we'll be rooting for the Thunder Bay Chill. I never thought I'd find myself supporting a Thunder Bay sports team, but there's lots of reasons to do so as a Calgary soccer aficionado. And then I think the last kind of topic we wanted to hit quickly is just kind of mention my book is now available to place on hold with the Calgary Public Library, which I sometimes jokingly refer to as the other CPL. But yeah, I know, like, I have been getting messages about how people can get it, and I've been directing them to either, or the websites that you can order it from, like Barnes and Noble or Amazon or Friesen Press. But this is a nice option because it is free, right? And I have no issue with people accessing the book for free. I just want to get that story out there. So the fact that you can get it through the library is fantastic. And I really have to give kudos to my wife, because she's the one who put the suggestion in. She emailed the CPL, the Calgary Public Library, and said, hey, there's a new book about Calgary soccer history. Would you be interested in stocking it? And they got back to her pretty quickly, and now it's there. So kudos to her.
Yeah, that's very cool. So it's really nice to see that the book's getting some traction. It's getting in the news, and the article in the Herald, and the other media hits you've done, and now in the library. So and great job.
Thanks. Yeah. If you follow me on Twitter, I've been posting a lot of the media coverage that it's been getting. And yeah, last week, my Calgary Herald /Sun colleague Todd Salehoff, who I've known from my Cavalry coverage since 2019. He did a really nice story about it. So much thanks to him for that.
Thank you for listening to the YYC Soccer Podcast. You can have this podcast downloaded to your device as soon as it becomes available by subscribing using Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or any other podcasting platform. Check out our website at yycsoccer.com. You can look through our episode archive there, and you can find other options to listen, including our new YouTube channel. We also have links on there to buy Scott's book online. You can leave a question or comment in the Contact Us section of our website, or you can interact with us on social media such as Twitter or Instagram. Our handle is YYC Soccer 403. Thanks for listening.